So it's just amazing. Photoshop is one of the few programs, I've seen very, very, very few programs allow you to do this much stuff to type and have the type remain completely editable. Illustrator and InDesign, the rest of the Adobe suite, none of them keep up with Photoshop in this regard. CorelDRAW at one point in time allowed you to do this much stuff with editable type, and now Photoshop does it, more stable and a more elegant program in my estimation. Just amazing how much stuff you can do. All right, let's talk a little bit about entering and editing type. Notice that I've got my insertion marker between the S and the Y right now. If I press the return or enter key, the return or enter key that's on the main keyboard, the one that's above the shift key and to the right of the quote key, if I press that key, I'm going to create a carriage return between these two letters where I had the insertion marker. If I delete, that's going to go away. I'm going to bring those two letters onto the same line. If I press Shift Return or Shift Enter on the PC, that creates a line break. And we'll see the difference between those later on. A line break doesn't take into account any of Photoshop's paragraph formatting settings. So these two lines are still part of the same paragraph. Like I said, we'll take a look at that again. To escape the text editing mode and to accept your changes, I've been showing you to switch to a different tool like the Marquee tool, which works if you click on the Marquee tool or any other tool for that matter. You will accept the changes you've made to your text. The other way, however, is to take advantage of an option up here in the options bar, which is currently hidden. I'm going to drag the option bar over so we can see it. And there it is right there, that little check. And that says commit any current edits. And the way you get that from the keyboard, there's two ways to get it from the keyboard. Press Command Return on the Mac or Control Enter on the PC. We'll accept the changes, and I don't have to click the button, and I also don't have to switch tools. The other way to do it, I'll undo that so that my text is still active. Just make sure it's still active here. The other way to do it is to press the Enter key on the keypad. Both the Mac and the PC have a key called Enter that's on the keypad if you have an extended keyboard, and that will also accept the changes. The other way to escape from the text editing mode is, watch, let's say I delete OSSY by selecting the characters with the type tool and pressing the delete or backspace key so that it now says fly. And then after doing that, I decide, wait a sec, I don't want to make those changes. I can either come over here and click on the reject button, the cancel any current edits button, or I can press the escape key. The escape key will also escape from the text editing mode and cancel any changes I made to the text. Now, be careful with the escape key, because the escape key completely cancels any changes you've made. They're not undoable. You can't undo. The escape key is a completely not undoable operation, an unundoable operation, which is to say it's only doable. Even in the history palette, you can't go to the history palette and find anything about your changes you've made either. So what you don't want to do is sit there and work on a text block for 5 minutes and then hit the escape key because you decide, I really didn't want to make those changes, and then go, oh, wait a sec. The first 3 minutes I made good changes. It was just the last 2 minutes I made bad changes. Because you know what? Then you're going to get to redo those 3 minutes because you have no way to get back to them. So anyway, that's how you edit and enter text. You can also double click with the type tool. There's various ways to select characters and words. You just drag over characters in order to select them, replace them from the keyboard with new letters if you type them in. You can double click to select an entire word. You can triple click to select an entire line, or you can quadruple click. Click 4 times in a row to select an entire paragraph of type. Now let's say I decide to deactivate my text by pressing either the Enter key on the keypad or the Escape key. And now my text isn't active anymore. All right, now I want to create a new text layer, let's say, a completely new text layer. Well, if I start from here, I want to click like right around this area here and create a new text block that just goes right under the word Flossie. Okay? If I click right here, notice that I've got the I-beam cursor. Can you see that little cursor that I'm just wiggling slightly? That's the I-beam cursor. If you see that cursor, that means Photoshop wants to edit some text that you already have up on screen. So if you click, bang, you're starting to edit this text again. This is not a new text layer. This is the old text layer, and you're getting set to enter some more text. So go ahead and press the escape key to get out of that. How do you create a new text layer? Where you can move your text cursor far enough away from the existing text layer that you get a little dotted outline around the cursor. So notice the difference between too close and far enough away. The dotted outline tells you that you're far enough away. Or you can get close in and press the Shift key. Press the Shift key, and that will put the outline around that cursor. So I can get very, very close. I can even just hover over my existing flossy text and click, and notice Photoshop creates a new text layer. Now it's going to be clipped by the previous text layer because it wants to create the layer on top of the previously active layer, which was the text layer, and we already have some grouping going on because of the flux layer. So this one's appearing in between, so it's part of the group too. So if I enter some text like, "This is masked," and what happened to that text? Well, it's inside the previous flossy characters. Let me show you that by turning off the flux layer so we can't see it. You can see if I press the Command key or Control key on the PC and drag my type that it's actually type masked by other type. I've got live type masked by other live type inside Photoshop. I have to say, I haven't seen that inside any other program besides Photoshop. Live type masked inside of live type. I just think that's insane. That's so funny that you can do that. But you can, and I'm sure, you know what? I'm not impugning it for a second because I'm sure there's a wonderful thing that you can do with that. And in fact, you can create this wonderful stripe pattern here, which if that's not enough, I don't know what is. But anyway, so Shift-click to create another text block to ensure that you're going to create another text block. If you want to make sure that you're not going to create another text block inside the current text block, you can either start on another layer if you want to, or I can just take this stuff that I created, "This is masked," I can just drag it out of the existing clipping group, drag it down here on top of the background layer, and now it's a separate layer, albeit behind the previous layer, but here it is. Okay, now let's look at how to format type, by which I mean change its appearance. Change the font, change the type size, whatever. These are known as formatting attributes, in case you're curious. And there's a couple of different ways to apply said formatting attributes. One is to apply it to the entire type layer. And when the options bar does not show a check mark or an X, we know that the entire layer is active. Let me show you the difference. If I click here between the T and the H, I get a little check mark and a little X that allow me to escape the editing mode. So I'm in editing mode. If I try to change a formatting attribute while I'm in editing mode, such as type size, I'll try to change the type size here to something like 12 point. Notice nothing happens because I don't have anything selected. So it's important to keep in mind that if you want to change the entire text block at a time, you have to make sure that you don't see that check mark and X. So look for the check mark and X to make sure that you're either in editing mode or you're not in editing mode. So let's start outside of editing mode. I'm going to click the X because we didn't do anything. We are now officially outside editing mode. No check mark, no X. I can now change the attributes of the entire layer. I will go under the type size pop-up menu and choose 12 point, and that will change the entire layer. Yay! That's what I wanted to do. Now, if I want to change just a word or two or a letter or whatever, then I take the type tool and drag across the letters that I want to change, or could double click on a word, whatever. Drag across the letters that I want to change, and then I would go under, in this case, the type size pop-up menu and choose 18 point, whatever. It's just going to affect the selected letters. So that's the difference between basically a global edit to the entire layer or an isolated edit to just a few letters. Okay, I'm going to press the escape key now because I don't want to make this change. Now let me show you another way to edit an entire layer.